All right, well today we're in for an absolutely rare treat because we're in probably one of my all-time favourite places, the machine shop. Now this is where legends are made and old engines are reborn and put back into service, and today we've got a Ford 4-litre Barra engine. We're going to strip it down, check out some of the engineering that Ford have and consider some of our options when it comes time to rebuild. The VCT on the Ford engines is the variable cam timing. The actuators that run the cams are at the top here. We've got to take the retaining plates off before we slip the rocker cover off. Have a look at this, the mighty 6-cylinder twin cam engine completely revealed. Technology under here, sort of stuff you would have found in race cars about 20 years ago. All built for hardcore, reliable performance. Okay, with the timing cover off the front of the engine, gives us a chance to have a bit of a look. You can see the timing chain going around the cams. We've got the recess for the water pump over here, and out the back, the oil pump. Okay, the engine's nearly stripped down now. We've got to take the cylinder head off, and for you engine Nazis out there, good idea with that one with the actual head studs. Start from the centre, work in a circular fashion on the way out. Now the Ford Barra engine is a good thing to start off with, but the weak link in the chain when you're chasing performance is the valve springs. They tend to go a bit soft when you're pushing the high RPM. So make sure you pay attention to these, and we'll cover it a little bit later on. Now we've got the 4-litre Atmo engine here, but I've managed to grab a turbo piston, and as you can see, there is a recess in the top of the piston here. That brings the compression ratio down on the turbo, so that turbo spool can bring the boost up, and that's where it gets its power. Now you can't just go bolting a turbo onto a naturally aspirated engine because, of course, at 9.4 to 1, it's too much boost, too much power, the engine's going to fall apart. This latest generation Ford engine is built tough. Have a look at the bolts on the side. They go through to the main caps at the bottom of the engine, making the sump a stressed member. Now I tell you what, on the evolutionary scale, you think back to the 144 of the early days, these things are engineering overkill. With the sump removed, it gives an opportunity to have a look at the bottom half of the engine. You can see the oil pickup here going to the oil pump. Now we're going to pull the oil pump apart a little bit later on, so more on that very soon. The windage tray now needs to come off so we can get access to the conrod bolts. Okay, I've taken the big end cap off now, and what I'm going to do is protect the crank by sliding on some rubber hose onto the rod bolts. I do this because when I push it past the crank, it protects the journal and prevents disaster later on. Taking the piston and conrod out of the block is a two-man job, so I've got to call him my man, the Big V. Job well done. Well, we're in the home straight. 4 more bolts and the crankshaft comes out, then the block will be back to its underwear, and from there on in, it's rebuild time. Now, before you ask the question, can I bolt this cylinder head to my early E-Series? Well, the answer to that question is no. You're gonna have to go for the whole engine, but don't worry about it because the conversion is dead simple. Now earlier on we told you we were going to check in with some options for rebuilding your engine, and we're going to do it right now because we've popped across to Atomic Performance Products and we're here with the main man, Brad. Thank you very much for having us here this afternoon, mate.
No worries at all, Jason.
Now listen, you've been building engines for a while, I understand.
Oh, only about 30 years of involvement in the performance industry.
Now before that, I understand you had a lot to do with Brad's Performance Shop, is that right?
Brad's Speed Shop, yeah, was a business I ran for 20 years.
Yes.
And after retiring, semi-retiring from the industry, I decided to have a little bit of a break and got back into it after finding an interest in these Ford engines.
Now we're going to have a look at a couple of insurance policies when it comes time to rebuilding. Sure. Let's start off with the windage tray over here, mate. This looks like a standard one, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's just the standard tray. It's just basically designed to keep the oil and the crankshaft separated from each other, and keep the oil in the pan.
Now the Gold Beast right here looks like it's a slightly uprated version of that.
Yes, it is. It's a CNC profiled steel billet main cap support that we make. It helps tie the main caps onto the block because we find the main caps walk around when you get up to about the 400 kilowatts at the wheels.
About 400 kilowatts. So really like a street orientation for this one here.
That's right. That's
right.
Well,
if this is the standard and that's the street, I've got to ask you what this mamma jamma is right here, mate. This is a serious bit of kit.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the race girdle. That goes on, all of the real big engines that we do, the 600 to 950 kilowatt engines.
Right, and that bolts up under the block and gives it a lot of support as well.
Yep, ties the caps in really well.
Okay, what a great evolution. Well, let's move on to conrods. What have we got here down the front?
Sure, okay, well look, the first conrod that we've got here is the standard BF BA conrod.
Okay.
This comes in the turbo, non-turbo and the LP gas engines.
Stock standard stuff.
That's how they come.
Okay.
Now, Ford had a few problems with these braking, so in the BFs they upgraded them a little bit to this rod. That's it's
a lot thicker through the centre section.
A little bit thicker through the beam. They still brake, but they're a bit of an improvement over the stock one.
Well, let's talk about what you've got on offer here, because you've got two here. Let's start off with that beast right there.
Okay, well this is our Super Leggera conrod.
Yes.
It's a little bit lighter than the stock conrod, but it's rated to 100 kilowatts per cylinder.
Far out. So you can thump 600 kilowatts with this thing safely.
No problem at all.
Wow, well if you can do 600, what can you do with that bad boy?
Well, that's our fat rod.
Fat rod, fat rod.
Now, the fat rod is rated to 175 kilowatts per cylinder.
Far out.
And we've got customers making over 1,000 kilowatts on these conrods.
Goodness me, well you only have to look at that and put that side by side with there. You can really see the strength through the centre section.
Yep.
That's an absolute animal, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, let's move up even higher. Let's go to the cylinder head bolts. We've got a standard one here. Now, you make a direct replacement, is that correct?
Yes, we make a stud. It's a chrome moly steel stud that we manufacture. These original head bolts can only be used once and they've got to be thrown away. Ours can be reused many, many times. Plus, because they've got a fine thread on the top, they provide 40% more clamping force than this.
Okay, so we're really moving into the insurance area here.
Correct.
Good, safe, reliable performance upgrades. Now, if this is the standard one, what is that thing there?
Okay, well, nobody's ever seen this before, but this is our 14.3mm head stud conversion.
You only have to put it next to that one there. That is pretty thick, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, what do you have to do with this one? Bore and tap the head, do you?
That's right. You've got to drill and tap the thread out in the block to accept that and drill the clearance holes through the head to allow it to fit in.
Far out. And what sort of power can this sort of thing sustain?
1,000 kilowatt guys use those.
Far out. Excellent. And it's just a matter of just doing it to the head and away you go. Now, we've gone from there to these, of course, which is the Achilles heel of the engine, the valve springs. Yeah,
the original valve springs in these Ford engines are particularly weak. They certainly need an upgraded spring, especially with a turbo engine. Turbo boost pressure pushes the inlet valve off the seat and you end up with bad misfiring in the engine.
And these just drop straight in?
Total drop-in replacement. You don't need a new retainer or anything, they just fit straight in.
Okay, well, talking about keeping the engine going, keeping the lifeblood, we've got a modified oil pump. Let's have a look at that.
Okay, well, the oil pumps, as you know, are driven off the snout of the crankshaft.
That's correct.
They have a sintered gear, and these sintered gears smash because of the torsional moment on the cranks.
With all the power going through, they just obliterate it.
They just smash to pieces.
Rightio.
So we make a EDM wire cut chrome moly gear set.
Far out. Sounds pretty hardcore. Let's go. What is it?
Okay, it's a direct replacement set of these sintered gears which go into our oil pump, but we do more than just put these oil pump gears into the pump.
Right.
We also modify all the pressure relief valve circuitry in the pump to allow the engine to bleed off enough oil at high RPM.
I had a bit of a look. You've got your conrods here, but do you guys do pistons?
Certainly do.
What have you got for me?
Well, we've got these pistons here. These are made by Marl in Germany for us.
Yeah, okay.
This is the latest piston that we have in the evolutionary process of pistons for these BA engines.
And what sort of power do they support?
We put these in all our engines, 600 to 950 kilowatts.
Now let's talk about the purple beast up the front here.
Okay, that's our ANDRA approved harmonic balancer.
Right.
These go onto the end of the snout of the crankshaft in the normal fashion. All the pulleys and everything line up totally standard. It absorbs about 50% more torsion and vibration than the stock balancer.
Yep.
And being a full steel chrome moly construction, it's ANDRA approved. So the quick running guys have to have one of these on their car.
Definitely.
We give a lifetime warranty on that. You won't break it.
Well, all the products you have here essentially aren't really performance products. They're not going to make your car go faster, but as an insurance when you are rebuilding an engine for performance, every single one of these items here, it's good to know that you've got them in the engine.
That's right. You have to have this level of componentry in the engine if you want to make the big power and keep it reliable.
They are a really good insurance policy. If you're rebuilding the engine, definitely have a look at this. And mate, thank you very much for walking us through the products.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.